girls, welcome to the Industry 4.0 weekly live stream. So we got a special guest today. We got Zackary Stank from Phoenix Contact on the community spotlight. And also, just a quick reminder, Walker Reynolds is on sabbatical this month. He posted a video earlier last week. Many of you guys did see that video. Thank you. And so he will be back in August, but we're going to continue our weekly live streams this month. And so we've also got a special segment after the community spotlight today. So it's a special webinar that, I was on last week and I wanted to kind of restream it here today. So, but without any further ado, let me introduce Mr. Zackary Stank, the community spotlight.
Hi, Zach. How are you?
Good to have you on here. And so what I want to do is I want to dive straight into it. Real quick, I do want to make a quick shout out to everyone that has already purchased the PLCnext Starterkit. I will leave a link down below. And right now it does look like those are going to be shipping. If you pick it up today, your estimated delivery is in between September and December. So you can still get it this year if you put the order in today. Unfortunately, if you haven't already purchased it, we're going to be doing our PLCnext workshop in the month of August. So if you've already purchased the PLCnext starter kit, it's probably already on the way if you haven't already got it. And we're going to be doing that PLCnext workshop next month. So but we're always going to be opening up mentorship again in December. So if you guys haven't already joined, there's still to join, but I just wanted to say, pick up your PLCnext starter kit today. So with that being said, are the shades from Swag Up? No, Dan. That's actually a good, we are going to do the swag packs. Many of you guys have received it already with the Phoenix Contact hat and, the Phoenix Contact Rambler, a few other things. So thank you guys for sharing those photos. That was really awesome. And thank you, Phoenix Contact for sponsoring the swag packs. Absolutely.
It was our pleasure. We love what you guys are doing in the community, and, anything to get more of the 4.0 out there, we're game.
So typically on these type of, streams, we kind of typically, or, people would be like, oh, so tell us your background story, but I do want to get to your background story, but I really want to dive into the PLCnext for anyone that doesn't already know like what it's about, or, the whole ecosystem of limitless automation. Why don't you explain that?
Yeah, sure. I hope the echo wasn't on my end there. Hopefully took care of it. But so PLCnext is really the next piece of automation from Phoenix Contact. And it was, this has been in development for several years. Phoenix Contact has had controllers all the way back to the late 80s. We've done a lot of control over the years. And, one thing that really pushed development with this was, it's in the name, it's what's next. And the big thing that we keep seeing when we would go to different suppliers, or we would go to different customers, was this need to be open. The IIoT moving forward, and everybody's talking about being open, whether it's MQTT, OPC UA, just general Ethernet. Openness has always been the thing that has driven the development of this product for us. So it's really cool to be a part of a company and a team that's doing a lot. And the big thing for us has always been open. And when we say open, and you'll see this when you're in, you're doing the mentorship program and you're doing some of the work with PLCnext, it's Linux, it's IIoT ready, and it's revolutionary. So it's really open to the core, like it says on the box.
Okay, so Linux, it's IIoT ready, it's open to the core. Why'd you guys take that approach?
So, it was actually a pretty easy decision for us as a company, because we weren't, seen as a market leader in controls. Certainly we had areas within automotive where we've been doing a lot of work with Audi and BMW. Some of the big three here in the US as well still used Interbus, which is our initial serial network. And, as we got into it, the openness with our IO platform, we do a lot of IO for a lot of different networks. We saw that need in the market, and it's really driven our decisions moving forward. So, when it came back to the drawing board and the initial proposal was, what are we going to do for our next control? The thought was, well, we could go closed and make it, the next closed thing that we have, or let's let's embrace this openness. Like everybody coming out of college right now has done, C++, C#. It seems there's, openness throughout Raspberry Pi, Arduinos. Linux is really taking on big within the community, and let's just go that route. Like we have nothing to lose with doing this, and it really seems like this is the next big wave. Let's go that way. And as we pursued it, and development continued to occur, we realized that we were on the right path, and it only encouraged us to keep developing it. So it's really been a push from the community. I say the community, I mean the larger industrial community as a whole. And we see that, within the automotive sector. We see it within process with places like OPATH and OPAS, trying to open up the standards within the process control sector. And just openness and having this community-driven, need to be open is really the IIoT message that everybody's been embracing here, and especially in the Industry 4.0 community.
Awesome. Yeah, no, and Phoenix has been, really that's why we don't just partner with everyone. We partner with people that align with our values and our mission. And, that's, I think, where the partnership came to be so naturally and so organically.
Yeah.
So I do have a question. How has the starter kit been received?
So the starter kit's been amazing. Through RealPars and through our own distribution channel here in the US, we've frankly hit a point where we couldn't supply the demand that was out there. So I think a couple of our distribution partners might have some in. I think RealPars is still selling it. People want a low-cost open solution that they can work with. And honestly, it's been great for a lot of users out there. You want to get in and try an industrial control system. You know what? $500 isn't that terrible amount of money to spend, especially when the software is free. There's no licenses with it. Just go on and start working with it. That's really been the biggest thing for us is adoption by having it available.
Okay, so and I do want to bring up. That price is actually pretty unbelievable that you can get it. The whole kit. It looks like it's probably like a loss leader, but let's talk about the processors. I know because there's like a 12, and then there's like a 20. There's like a 1, and then there's like a 2 series, right? So how do the different processors work, and what are like the breakdowns on what horsepower I'm going to get with this one versus like the more, advanced one, or also the standalone Edge PC that was kind of recently introduced? Yeah.
So a little bit of alphabet soup here, or number soup, if you will. So there's 3 levels of the PLCnext platform. There's the 1152, 2152 as one level. There's the 3152 as its own separate level. And then the 4072S, which is like the highest tier that we have at the moment. The 1152 and the 2152 are pretty similar in terms of performance. The 1152 has 1 core instead of 2 cores available. But they're your generals. If you're used to using an ILC 131, or maybe you're talking about a compact Logix or something like that, or one of the smaller Siemens controllers, like maybe a 1200. That's kind of where we're at with the 1152 and the 2152. The difference in those two, like I said, is really on the cores available from the processor.
And you have the dual core or at the base level?
Dual core on the 2152, and then the 1152 is the single core processor, and it's also got a lower price point too. So if you're looking at repeating lots of things or doing a ton of these in small machines, that's really a more low cost option for you with a little bit less horsepower on it. Then the 3152 is a little slightly bigger in terms of form factor, but it's also got more horsepower. It's about 2.5 times more powerful than the 2152. So it goes a little bit faster. It has more RAM, so you can do more processing on it and more storage on it. And then the 4072 is really like a high-end, it's actually a safety PLC as well. So if you're looking for full factory automation of multiple lines and multiple things, and you want to use ProfiSafe, you can use that as your like really high-end PLC. And then you mentioned the Edge PC, and that's the now I got to get my numbers together. So it's 50. I think it's no, they're gonna kill me because I got it wrong. But there's two edge PCs. Essentially, the difference on the edge PC is, of course, it's a PC and not a PLC, which means that you can have an embedded PC work. I'm sorry, not PC Works. It's our old platform. An embedded PLCnext technology, which is the platform we use for PLCnext. But it also has mass storage available on the unit itself. So something like a 3152 and the 1101 or the 5101, I believe, they're kind of comparable in size and performance. The biggest thing is that you're going to have that solid state drive on the edge PC, where you wouldn't have something like that on the PLC hardware.
Would you compare that solid state drive though on the edge PC? Would you kind of compare that? Well, I mean, you're probably going to have more storage than the onboard SD card that you can get, but
yeah,
could you do something similar using the onboard the Phoenix Contact SD card inside of the PLCnext to store?
Yeah, so you can. I mean, the storage is limited when you go to the SD card. It's just kind of the function of an SD card. So the way we break it down for our customers, if you're really looking for doing lots of data collection and you want a local, database of stuff, you can do that on a flash card. The SD card will get you so many reads, writes, but we also want to make sure that you're selecting the correct product for your needs. So if you're looking to do something where you're taking, samples 4 times a day, and each one of those is going to be, hundreds of lines of code or something like that, maybe having a solid state drive for the money is probably going to be a better bet than just having a standalone PLC. And then also with the embedded hardware on it, you can do Windows or, bring your own Linux if you wanted to, but you could do some of the stuff that you wouldn't be able to do on a PLC in that fashion.
And so the idea is that I could write my library using the PLCnext Engineer software and then deploy to whether it be, a PLCnext PLC or a PLCnext Edge device and run it from the same kind of interface.
That's correct. Yeah. I mean, within PLCnext Engineer, the only difference it would be was replacing the controller. So inside of the tree structure, you essentially can go in and say, yeah, I want to do a 2152, or, if I decide that I want that mass storage, all the code stays the same. I can just add in a, one of our edge PCs, and now I have that as my main controller, and I can add IO via the Ethernet cable then. So I can do, I believe, Profinet off of that.
Wait, you can do Profinet off of the edge PC?
It might be Modbus. I'll have to double check on that one. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. So you can expand IO off of it, but you have to do it through what we call a bus coupler or an Ethernet head station. So.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And then tell us about your cloud connectivity support. What options do you have?
Yeah, so natively we connect to our own cloud. So when I say natively, I mean it's essentially a checkbox within the PLC programming software. If you want a data point to go into the cloud, we can do that with ProfiCloud by just checking a box. And ProfiCloud is our cloud solution. It's an industrial cloud solution. It gives you the ability to do really just data capture. You can do some dashboarding with it. It can be powerful on the dashboards, but it's definitely not a replacement for AWS or Azure or one of the big players there. So kind of like baby steps. If you know what you're doing or you think you have a good idea what's going on, maybe ProfiCloud is a good way to go. But then if you've already been hooked into a cloud, corporately you guys have an AWS structure, you're using unified namespace, Azure, whatever you're trying to do, we have function blocks that you can use directly within PLCnext, the hardware itself, within the controller software, PLCnext Engineer. And then you can also do it through the Linux platform too. So you can make it a green grass device and go right up to AWS and be good to go.
Wow, that's freaking cool. Even the PLC version of the PLCnext, obviously.
Yeah, PLC and the PC version, both of them, you could do that.
Got it. Yeah, that's freaking
actually
cool.
the PC version as well. So, it comes with Node-RED already installed on it. So if you want to do Node-RED out to the cloud, or you already have stuff set up for that, you can do Node-RED directly to whatever cloud solution you want to use as well.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Node-RED, there's a lot of capabilities to do some like dashboarding and prototyping and connecting to different data sources. All right. Yeah. Awesome. So if you guys do have any more questions about the PLCnext, leave them in the chat below. I do want to ask you, Zach, and I said, because I said I would, that I want to know, like, how'd you get started at Phoenix Contact? How long you been there, and how'd you get in this industry?
Awesome. So I think my 10-year anniversary at Phoenix Contact was yesterday or or Sunday. Thank you very much. Yeah, 10 years here at Phoenix Contact. So I started out I was in quality for a defense contractor doing, we can go into more alphabet soup here if you want. So NMPV, MRAPs, M88, M109 manufacturing, and first article testing of the automotive system. I did that right out of school. I'm trained as a chemical engineer, so it was a little bit of a strange way to come around to that. But you know, I came to Phoenix Contact. They had an open house in April of, April of 2011. And I wanted something closer to home. And, you know, I was driving about an hour each way every day down to the old job. And I actually passed Phoenix Contact every day on my way home, not knowing what it was. And so I went in, and the first person I met at Phoenix Contact was the president of the Phoenix Contact, Jack Nalig. And he was greeting every single person that showed up at the door, which I had never met anybody beyond VP of a division, you know, and that was even a Met. That was, you know, they were talking in front of us and telling us, you know, how the stock price was doing at my old place. So, I mean, Jack is a wonderful man. If you've never met Jack, he's fantastic. He really is the culture at Phoenix Contact. You know, really pushing forward and making sure that culture is first, that we are a very happy and easy place to go, and being there and shaking his hand and him kind of giving us, you know, the lay of the land really just brought me in. As soon as I got out of there, I went online and I think I applied for every position that was open at Phoenix Contact, which, by the way, isn't the greatest thing to do. If you're a young person out there watching this, that reeks of desperation when you do that. So maybe be a little bit more wise in the positions you apply for. But certainly, you know, I in my time there during the open house, I met Ira Sharp, who Zach, you know, and Vaughn, you know. Ira had just recently been promoted to manager. He brought me in for an interview and, you know, hired me up as a safety specialist. And then after 8 years as a safety specialist, Ira got promoted to the director of automation. And then I assumed Ira's role as the manager of our control safety and IO platforms. So that's really how I got into the PLCnext realm of things then too. But within the product line, I mean, IO, safety, and control all kind of rest on the same platform. So it was an easy step up for me. Although some of this newer Linux stuff, I'm still trying to learn. So
okay,
always time to learn.
We have a couple of questions. One, thanks for sharing that. Alan asked, does it come with SparkplugB?
So the SparkPlug integration on PLCnext, there is a proof of concept that we have that's on our GitHub, the Phoenix Contact USA GitHub that we have. That is based around JavaScript. We're moving that into I think the C-base platform on it, and it will be available hopefully by the end of the year on PLCnext. So yes, we've seen a lot of SparkplugB from our user base, so it's certainly coming.
Good. All right. And then, do you know where a playbook or manuals or demos for the starter kit?
Yeah, so the best place to go for a starter kit is to the PLCnext community. So that's PLCnext-community.net. If you go in there, they have a whole makers blog. They have a getting started icon at the top, and that'll take you right to the PLCnext starter kit page and let you know how to go on there and how to do things. So that's a perfect place to go. I see you're searching it here too. So PLCnext-community.net. Hopefully it loads for you. And we do use cookies, so.
Let's see.
Yeah, there's tons of examples on here as well. another link you might be able to go to. So if you go to the top of the page there, Zach, there's there should be a drop down for knowledge base.
Nice.
Yeah, and then there's e-learning, which is really important to get in there and learn a lot of stuff. And then the basics would be, I think that takes you right to the how-to for the starter kit.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. And oh, perfect. Interactive online course. So if you guys haven't already, this is a free thing that you guys do for the community for anyone, right? You don't even have to have bought the PLCnext.
Yeah, actually, if you just want to download the software and start working with it, there's no, you don't have to put in any credit card numbers or anything like that. So you can just go right on it, start using the software, build up some code, and work with it.
Oh, here, so. It opened it up in a new tab. Here's what it looks like. Probably like, what is he looking at? Interactive online course. So yeah, and then our workshop, what we're going to do, Walker is actually, because he's on sabbatical this month, he's actually working on building a few proof of concepts and demo applications inside of the Next. And we're going to be leveraging that. We're going to be giving it out to the community. Actually, we're going to be publishing it to our unified namespace so other people can plug their Next into the unified namespace. That's what the whole workshop is about, is connecting the PLCnext to the unified namespace in a workshop where we all connect them together. So we kind of create this hive mind. So that's the PLCnext technology basics. Thank you for the questions. Hey, Dave Schultz, how's it going? Hey, Mario. Hey, Alan. Yeah. So if you guys do have any more questions for Zach or for me or for Vaughn, do let us know. Otherwise, we're in the next couple of minutes here, we're going to wrap it up, and then we're going to go into the presentation for today that we've got for you guys. And you guys don't want to miss that, so stick around for that. But do you have anything else you want to say, Zach?
Now, I did see in chat somebody called out my PRS in the background. So yes, thank you. that's my baby. No, any questions about PLCnext? You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm also in the 4.0 community. There's a bunch of the Phoenix Contact team in the 4.0 community Discord. We're always ready to answer questions. Our IT products, or I'm sorry, our tech support, I see that just came up. So our technical support here in the US is free. You can call in and ask questions, and they'll help you with the basics of PLCnext. If you have more in-depth questions, we also have 5 what we call ASE control, so automation specialists for control, that are scattered around the United States. We can get you in contact with them. They can be a resource to get you a loaner PLCnext starter kit. They can also, come on site, teach you some things. So from a technical support range, whether you're using PLCnext community, whether you're using our general tech support helpline here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, or if you're using any of our sales professionals out in the field, we got you covered.
Awesome. Excellent. Thank you, guys. Thank you again, Zach. And with that being said, we're going to parlay into the next part of the stream right after this commercial break. All right. So that I just inserted an ad on YouTube. So yeah, let's go ahead and so what I've got for you guys now is actually a video that is a webinar. It's about 1 hour, and I want to share it with you guys here. So make sure you kind of watch the whole presentation. It's with Frank Lamb from the Automation Academy. And what he's done is during the first 20 minutes, he actually shares his entire customer system, like name, details, technology they're using, and everything. So he kind of sets the stage, and then I take over and kind of, go over our standard presentation, but within the context of his application. So thank you, Frank, for having me on your podcast. And I want you guys to pay attention to Frank's systems and see where the capability gaps are, and where you might be able to help Frank and his customer.
You enjoy it. I'm going to go ahead and start a screen share here real quick. Make sure that works out well.
Hey, Tim. Hey, Vlad.
Here we go.
How's it going, Zach?
Beautiful day.
Morning.
Glad to be here. Yeah, good morning.
Cool. Yeah. So a couple people have jumped in. So hopefully everybody can see the little splash screen I've got up there. Um, I don't know what the best method of doing these PowerPoints is. I don't make it fill the whole screen, everything, and I just kind of drag things back and forth over it as I need to show things. So everybody does things a little bit different. I'll go ahead and kind of formally start it now. Again, my name's Frank Lamb. Everybody that is showing up on this feed here has actually been a guest on here so far. So they're already familiar a little bit with what kind of what I do. I'm just a one-man show here. So I'm a one-person company. Used to have a machine building company with some employees and things, and closed that company down in 2006 and went to work for a big machine builder, and then restarted my company in 2012 as just me. So what is this? Mastering the Machine. I put a document out back in 2013 as a kind of a lead magnet, opt-in incentive, whatever you want to call it. And people download that. And so that's where the name part of it comes from. And it's available for download still, although I don't do a ton with the email addresses that I collect. I've collected a bunch of them over the years, but haven't done a lot of marketing. But I do have this thing called the Automation Academy. And the reason I started this Mastering the Machine webinar is because I belong to another group called the Membership Academy that says if you create a membership site, you really ought to have live events every couple weeks or so. And so that's what I do. I have these live events. And as the people here know, they've been guests on these before. So, you know, I try to feature some kind of a guest and have a different topic. Most of my topics relate to PLCs and HMIs or the projects that I work on down in Miami, which relates directly to what we're doing here. So what I thought I'd do here is I'm going to introduce Zack real quick and then go over my application, which I've been working on for about 5 years. And a lot of the things, unbeknownst to us, we're making it up as we go along, but we use a lot of the same principles that Walker Reynolds espouses as far as unified namespace. We never called it that, but that's what we have. We have an ignition platform with one source of truth for everything, although it's probably not arranged quite the way that Walker would necessarily recommend. For anybody that does watch this later, I would recommend strongly that you go take this mini course. And it did change location, and I found that out the hard way because I had a link in my Automation Academy to Intellic Automation, and all of a sudden I went there and I clicked on it and it didn't work. And so I repointed it to this. This is great. This is the source for where I'm getting a lot of my information. And I'll talk a little bit about a document that I put together that has a lot of definitions and things in it, because it's easy to get lost with all these terms, things like unified namespace and Node-RED and MQTT and all these acronyms and platforms and things. So I'll talk a little bit about that at the end of this, probably after Zack's done. So today's topic is Industry 4.0 and the industrial Internet of Things. And one of the things that Walker, of course, espouses is having a single source of truth called a unified namespace. Now, there's actually a definition for just namespace. You can go look it up on Wikipedia and find out what that kind of thing is. For those people who are familiar with programming, they're already familiar with tags and things like that and structures, right, UDTs. So it sort of relates to that. And so what I did here is this is a kind of a composite map of, you know, some of the data maps, data flow maps that Walker has put on his whiteboards and things as he explains things. And I've kind of combined it with the way that this company up here in the corner works, American Beverage Depot. So a little bit, my background is systems integration, machine building, and I have a grand total of about 3 customers that I regularly work with. One would be a training company in Canada. So I used to go all over the United States and teach PLCs and HMIs, but a lot of that's kind of died down because of COVID. The second one is a local company, Automation MTH, and I do a lot of work with them still and train people they still build machines and do a lot of programming, and I really don't help them with that. But they are somewhat involved with IIoT. They espouse a lot of digital twin stuff because they build individual machines. So they build also digital twins of those machines, for those who know what a digital twin is. And my third customer is, I still do systems integration for this one customer, and they've, Juan Pablo Garbin, the owner of the company, has actually been a guest on my webinars here. And I've done several of my webinars from American Beverage Depot. And so people may be familiar with some of the different machines that I have down there and things like that. I've talked a lot about those. And so the production process down there, there is SCADA, PLC, and devices, as you see here. I put CPASoft barcode because that's what we're looking at right now. And I know Walker's familiar with CPASoft. Has been talking about that. I floated these things out here because they're all issues and things that we discuss at American Beverage Depot when we talk about planning our systems. Business enterprise, again, if you go through some of Walker's presentations, he'll talk about things like, even if you don't have an ERP system, you don't think you do, you probably do, right? And so in the case of American Beverage Depot, theirs is QuickBooks, as he mentioned. And so we are pulling information, trying to pull information directly out of QuickBooks, right? But right now we're doing some manual entry because of cybersecurity and things.
Is it a QuickBooks Online or is it enterprise like QuickBooks?
It's enterprise. Yeah, it's enterprise. It's on their server. So I'll show a little bit of, here's kind of their network layout right now. And I'll kind of flip back and forth here. This is basically the data connections to a lot of the plant floor stuff. Their QuickBooks and most of their other stuff is on this enterprise network, right? So if we need information, we can pass it to the server independently on the enterprise network. And yes, there are connections to the web via this network, of course, through firewalls and things like that. And then this is a completely separate network. And we're having, there's a lot of data that we kind of manually put in on this network right now. We're still in the process of putting this together. This is the product flow through the plant. So these are all the different machines and things that we've been trying to put together, data acquisition systems for the last about 5 years. 5 years ago, Juan Pablo, who is the owner of the plant. So I have a very unique situation. I'm working directly with the owner of the plant. And I taught him much of what he knows about technology. He was a very technically minded person, but he was busy running the plant. He has a plant manager. There are multiple owners of this plant, but Juan Pablo and his sister own well over 50% of it. And then there's a minority owner or two in there, and his dad's involved. They put this plant in 2003, and it's a lot of the equipment in the plant is pretty old. But where we kind of started with this is this part of the system was already had a SCADA system on it. It had an RSView 32 old school Slick 505 system. And we put Ignition in originally to upgrade that. We needed to get something that was a lot more modern. So he bought Ignition. He's a big beat people down on price and negotiate. And this was back when Ignition was a little bit smaller and you could do that. You can't really do that so much anymore. And I'll talk about that and some of the implications that that's had. That's why we're looking at things like TATSoft right now, because they have a little better deal and they have MQTT, which is kind of built in, right? So cost savings, it may be worthwhile to add this, rather than just scabbing onto Ignition, add a completely separate TATSoft application in addition to this. But anyway, this is the product flow, and much of what we do as far as grabbing data comes from that product flow. So it started out and it was kind of just a SCADA system running this, but all of a sudden we started having different issues. And I watched the entire, by the way, hour-long course yesterday. I had already seen the mini course, but I looked at, and I'm trying to find the name of this. the 1 hour mastermind, the free mastermind. It's the first hour, I think, of the presentation. And a lot of what he talked about there really kind of hit home for me, you know, where when you interview the customer, and of course I work directly with the owner. As a matter of fact, he does most of the SQL work. He's very good with SQL and he's very good with JavaScript and things like that. And I'm really good with the hardware part. I taught him a lot of his PLC skills and then a lot of his, I guess, front end skills as far as creating the screens and things in Ignition. And then he kind of went on his own and he spent a couple of years just working with SQL and a lot of this, the data acquisition. And we started very quickly having issues that he needed to solve. He could have gone and used something like Visual Basic and he's had little apps created, but they didn't work very well. So he's created everything in Ignition. His warehouse management system is in there and it's self-created. It's just a big SQL database. A lot of his barcode stuff is self-created, right? It's he just scans stuff in and he's running all kinds of little, I guess, where the rubber meets the road problems with, like when people scan the wrong thing and it goes to the wrong location. And people don't realize that when things arrive in the plant, shipping things out is easy, right? When you send things out of the warehouse, you know where it's going to go and you know what the product is because you made it and you palletized it and everything else. But when you receive things, that's a completely different problem. And so we're spending a lot of our time now automating that process. When you receive things, you don't, number one, where they ordered, right? Is this even our product? You get a barrel of something and you don't necessarily know what it is. And the manufacturer does not give you what their barcode or necessarily is going to even look like, right? You may get computer equipment, you may get drums of juice, you don't know what you're going to get, right? So you kind of have to work through that. That's a lot of where the integration part comes. Then you have some physical constraints, like the guy's on a forklift. He has a barcode scanner. If he scans something, he doesn't necessarily have the ability even to hold like a tablet in his hand and scan with the other hand. Now, can you take the tablet and can you read the barcode and do that? Well, you could, but then you would have to kind of create drivers and get applications within that tablet and work on that. So right now what he's got is he's got a hand scanner and the thing has the ability to vibrate. So we give messages to the people that scan the stuff via the vibration. If it's not right, we can blink a light or we can vibrate the hand scanner. That all ends up in Ignition. So a lot of the logic that goes in there is working, hand in hand with the big SQL database. Well, there's at least probably 8 databases in there doing different things. One of which we're going to try to transition to being the unified namespace. Right now, our names, we do have a single source of truth, but they're in a lot of different kind of little directories and things depending on the machines. Part of what Zack's probably going to talk about and what Walker espouses is going back to this, having an enterprise level, right? Kind of like building a UDT and having a site level and an area level. And something that hit home when I listened to Walker's presentations were, do you ever plan to sell your plant? Well, they will never be more than a single location facility. They're a kind of a co-packer. They do have their own products and they make juice and things like that. But if they ever did sell out, it would be because somebody wanted what's called their Tetra lines. The Tetra lines, Tetra packs are juice boxes, and only a certain number of people are allowed to make juice boxes within a geographical area. It's kind of like Allen Bradley, right? They'll only have a certain distributor within their area. Well, they're one of the Tetra Pak co-packers in that area, and Tetra Pak won't put another Tetra Pak, capable company within a geographical area close to them. So if somebody did buy them, there is the possibility that they would do that just to acquire that Tetra Pak capability. So that's something to think about.
You're building IP for this client. That's the value. You're really building the unified. You're building like the unified namespace is it's like the digital twin. It becomes the business. It becomes more valuable than the business itself.
That's right.
Because it is the business.
The interesting part about this is I'm not. Actually, the owner is. So the owner is a guy that's probably not much older. I'm going to guess, Zach, and say you're in your late 20s to 30s. You're right at the age of Juan Pablo. Juan Pablo is probably, I'm going to say 33. He's brilliant. He's the owner of the plant and he does the work. He does most of the back end work and most of the database work. I have to catch up with him because he learns that stuff quicker than I do. Now, my expertise, I know plant floor equipment, and I can take a machine that somebody else wrote the program for and modify that program. And I noticed Walker was talking about being an expert in one platform. I'm kind of an expert in 3 or 4. So I teach Allen Bradley and Siemens, so I'm very good at those. I've been doing them for many, many years. I also did a lot of GE in my earlier years. And when you look at this, that's one of our problems here. A lot of GE, a lot of old GE, a lot of 9030s. You cannot simply attach to those things and pull data out of them. I can modify the programs, no problem, but we've run into problems where when we try to connect this directly, put an Ethernet card in there and just drill in and grab data out of it, it literally stopped the machines. And we don't know why. So that's one of our issues right now. How can we solve that problem? Can we change processors? Well, they're running, every day. You could maybe swap a processor out on a Sunday, maybe. It would be tough because if it didn't work right, you better be up by that night. You're running CIP on those machines and you better be up and running by Monday morning. So we don't have a lot of downtime, even over Christmas, right? We may have 2 days of downtime at one time. So it's not an easy thing to change these to something else. What's interesting is when they bought these machines, GE was their platform, but they switched to Allen Bradley within a year or two when they bought those machines. So now everything's ControlLogix. I could have gotten in there and done anything I would have wanted to with ControlLogix, right? We could have swapped processors, upgraded as need be. But right now we're stuck with these. And it's easy to say, well, just put an Allen Bradley in there anyway. Well, the hardware part of these machines is much, much more expensive than the controls. It's not very complex what it does, but a lot of it is CAM driven stuff. I showed a video of that, I think in the last webinar we did with Tim. I showed these, they almost look like big transformer hands, right? Pulling boxes down. And that's that machine. They're, close to $1 billion machines, and there's 3 of them in there. You're not going to swap controls out easily for that, even though we did that exactly that here. This was all Seidel equipment, and we completely changed this from the old slick stuff to ControlLogix. So we're on a pretty good platform now. Walker talks a lot, of course, about MQTT. We don't have any of that yet. I see a reason to do that now, but we can do everything with OPC because so much of our stuff is Allen Bradley and we're using Ignition. We can go grab data and pick up transitions as we need to. If we need to tie 2 machines together, we do that. We have to kind of here tying the syrup to these lines, but what we do is we sort of treat them as part of the syrup system. So if we get transitions in this data system, I will say here, right? That's where I have this dotted line kind of over to these. We have a lot of individual sensors and things stuck out on these lines in different rooms. We just have nodes sticking out there for CIP or the pasteurizers or whatever, but tied into this data system. That's been our shortcut. It's not easy to come into an existing plant and say mentally, I'm going to just revamp everything and I'm going to build this architecture. And you have to work around what's already there. That's one of the things. Now we've been able to swap things out, and like these, we voided any warranties on all these palletizers long ago. We pulled everything out, kind of recoded it, converted it into what we wanted it to be. And because of that, we're able to grab any data we want to from any of these systems, right? This is the original one that we put the Ignition on. And then now, of course, Ignition's up here. It's not down here just on this system. It's up here on everything now. So that's kind of how we transition into that. And at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Zack. And it's his turn. Zack, Scriven is kind of I know you're a tech guy. I read a lot of your LinkedIn profile, and you started working with Walker Reynolds several years ago, and then Walker had a company called Intellic, and still does, I guess, and then kind of spun off this 4.0 solutions company apparently, and that's maybe where you got involved. Or
No, actually, I was kind of largely behind the driving force of that spinoff. So Walker and I, we started working together in 2013 on an a large enterprise SCADA project. And this was an oil and gas project that was enterprise wide. They had like 5 different assets. Each one of those assets was like an oil and gas company that they acquired, right? So they got, you know, like this would have been like $100 million SCADA system upgrade if like Wonderware or Rockwell tried to integrate it all, right? So through that process, this was an ignition project. This was the Firebrand award-winning project where Walker and I met. The one with like, originally it was like us 4 as developers, but it grew to like 19 developers. And over the course of that year, they ended up spending around $1.4 million. And so the cost of the way that we integrated it like was groundbreaking. So like we just realized we couldn't do things the way we were doing them before. So naturally, you know, out of that project spawned like the gateway area network, right? This was actually before MQTT. If we had MQTT then, it would have went even smoother, right? So that was kind of us really learning the concept of the unified namespace in practice, right? We identified the need and we really built it out, working with Inductive and working with this large client to, you know, take the time that it was a development lift, right? We developed a whole backend to manage our tag system that we, you know, instead of just clicking plus new tag and, you know, you enter in the information, we had a database that drove all of our tag creation. So when they wanted to bring a new asset online, we had that all modularized and, you know, configured to just drop in new assets. So, you know, then we kind of went separate ways for a few years. I went and worked for a few other system integrators, and Walker spun off he started Intellic integration in like 2015, 2016. So in 2018, I had like this wild idea I was kind of unfulfilled in the job I was in. I was really working for like a legacy integrator at the time. And I really was just drawn to want to do more, right? I was actually working on let me share. Would I be able to share here?
oh yeah, let me turn it over to you. Stop share, and I know you have to do something funky here. Let's see, multiple advanced sharing options, all participants. Now, I wish there was a way to give it to a specific person, but I think it works now.
If you make me a co-host, that would work. But
that's the way to do it.
Everyone here.
By the way, I'm always afraid somebody could grab this. You know, Vlad could take it right now. Vlad could share, and I could probably shut him off.
Well, no, I do appreciate you setting the stage, and I do appreciate you having me on. And, you know, you're one of the few, actually, a lot of people on this call right now are some of the few content creators I actually trust in the industry that actually put value first before marketing. So it's actually an honor to be here presenting. I hope I am able to provide some value and some additional insight. And I love how in deep you went with that customer, American Beverage Depot. Thank you for, you know, adopting the new technology and trying something new. And, you know, it's going to pay off. And we're going to get into industry 3.0 versus industry 4.0 here. And American Beverage Depot is kind of positioned in a way where they can capitalize on that 4.0 transition, right? Yep. You hear people talk about 75% of digital transformations fail, or, you know, Walker says it's even higher than that. Over 90% of digital transformations fail. So what is it that makes the company successful, right? So it really boils down to 3 things. It's the right technology, it's the right strategy, and it's the right partners, right? So American Beverage Depot is really, they've got all 3 right now. So let's kind of dive into what digital transformation is and what's the difference between industry 3.0 and industry 4.0. So we can kind of see, you know, from a 10,000 foot level, the transition that American Beverage Depot is currently on. So if you guys can see this here. And by the way, I didn't actually make these slides. Someone from our community made these slides, and they did a co-presentation with Walker. And so thank you, John McKeon, for creating these slides. So, but in any case, you know, it's obviously inspired from our content. Walker likes to famously present from, you know, a OneNote and just keep it really, you know, no PowerPoints and nothing crazy. But I did actually like this slide. So over here on the left, you have the automation stack. And, you know, we've done a lot of videos about this, but I'll keep it short. These are all, each one of these devices, each one of these layers in your business, from your PLCs to your SCADA system, your MES system, which kind of sits in between the blue line and the orange line, which, you know, this is your plant floor from the blue line down, and from the orange line up, that's kind of your enterprise, your IT network. And you kind of have your manufacturing execution system here in the middle, kind of relaying information. You know, a lot of times this is paper. And a lot of times this is completely air gapped, you know.
Or spreadsheets.
The problem is
spreadsheets with lots of macros. That's what we've got.
Yeah. So the problem is you can't digitally transform an organization like that. I mean, it's obvious, right?
Yep.
So, you know, Facebook is not keeping our user data in a spreadsheet, right? They're not, you know, typing in a new line every time a new person signs up. So what is it that makes, you know, what is it that makes this possible, right? You know, what is this edge device, and what is this over here on the right, this unified namespace? How do we get from over here to over here? So we actually teach, there's really only 4 things to create a unified namespace. People ask all the time, hey, Zach, can, you know, is SAP S4 HANA a unified namespace? Is WinCCOA, is it a unified namespace? Answer is yes, actually. Famously, Inductive Automation's Ignition, and you know, more recently, Factory Studios frameworks, you know, Tatsoft's frameworks platform are, you know, kind of the go-to platforms for creating your IIoT unified namespace. But really, to be a unified namespace, to create an IIoT ecosystem, you really only need 4 minimum technical requirements. You can have more, right? American Beverage Depot can choose to add a 5th one if they wanted to, but they really need these 4. And the 4 minimum technical requirements are, it's got to be edge driven, right? So what does that mean, right? The configuration is done from the edge side, not the server side. So in the same way, when a user goes and signs up for Facebook, it's edge driven, right? I go to Facebook, I'm from the edge, Facebook's the server. I go to Facebook, I sign up, I create a new account. Facebook didn't have to do anything. I'm automatically plugged into the network, right? So you got to be edge driven. You got to be report by exception, right? So that's the second one. Report by exception means you're only reporting data that changes, right? And it's being reported from the edge, published into this, into the unified namespace. Why is edge driven matter? Because if you connect everything in your network, then if it's not edge driven, if you're sending all of the data, you'll run into bandwidth issues, right? It's just too much data, you know? So it's really important that these edge devices right here are only reporting the data that changes when it changes. The third minimum technical requirement, so you got edge driven, report by exception, it's got to be lightweight. In addition to 1 and 2, you still got to have that third component. It's got to be a lightweight payload, right? A lot of people talk about OPC UA, you know, because it's so common. But you know, OPC UA by, you know, in the standard implementation fails on edge, it fails on edge driven, and it fails on report by exception. OPC UA is 9 times out of 10, no, probably 99 times out of 100 configured server side pull response. So every time you add a new piece of equipment on your plant floor, you got to go into your OPC UA server. You got to enter in the device. You've got to add, you know, sometimes you've got to add the tags, not always, but if you don't add the tags, your clients that are connecting to your OPC UA server have to know what those tags are, right? There's no self-discovery going on, right? That's edge-driven, right? Self-discovery comes from edge-driven. If it's server-driven, you have to know what to put into the server. So it's not scalable. And then the last but not least, it's got to be open architecture. It's got to play nice with everything. You could have 1, 2, and 3, but if it's not open architecture, you're just creating another data silo. Why does open architecture matter? Why can't I just go to Rockwell and get the connected enterprise? Well, 2 reasons. 1, you're gonna run out of money before you digitally transform your whole organization. But 2, Rockwell doesn't make all the best in class products at every layer in the stack, right? Rockwell, well, actually, no, it's not Rockwell. It's Allen Bradley makes some of the best PLCs on the planet. You know, we wish they were a little bit more adopting MQTT and SparkplugB on the edge, but you know, we'll live with it for now, you know, because we can easily put in an edge gateway, right? We're willing to accept the fact that these Allen Bradley PLCs don't have the minimum technical requirements yet, because they're just such a good PLC and we're so familiar with them and they do the job. We can put in a low cost edge gateway, and that edge gateway, this edge device right here, may be connecting to your, it's probably connecting it to it over OPC UA. Well, obviously if it's an Allen Bradley, it is. But even if this was like let's say you had 10 smart PLCs all on the line here, you could still put an ignition and pull those PLCs with OPC UA if you wanted to, right? You've already got that set up. So what I would argue, or what I would suggest, or what I would say is your ignition server is actually your edge gateway, Frank. Mm-hmm. Your ignition server becomes your edge gateway. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take all the, you know, so you can, from everything to the left, it can be pull response, it could be Modbus, it can be, you know, the traditional legacy stuff. But everything going forward is either going to be a smart device natively, or you're going to put in an edge device to publish it, convert it into your IIoT ecosystem, right? It doesn't have to be MQTT. We like MQTT because it's one of the best right now, but you know, it's got to just be edge driven, report by exception, lightweight, and open architecture. And then you can create this ecosystem. And that's where the magic happens, right? And some people just really don't get that, you know, just installing ignition, right, doesn't mean you digitally transformed, right? It goes back to that strategy, right? What is your digital strategy? And I'll kind of go into the steps to digital transformation next, and we'll kind of see what that strategy looks like when you're digitally transforming. But if there are any questions, please do leave them in the chat, and I will, you know, answer them. And I will make these slides available too. Vlad said some of my customers that are Fortune 500 are using whiteboards for capturing line production metrics. Yeah, see, that's gonna fail, you know, because it's not edge driven, right? You got to manually write it there and all those things, right? So let's move on to the next slide here. So what are the steps? These are the steps and keys to digital transformation. What is it and how to achieve it? This is how you become the 1 in 10 that succeeds. It's real simple. Number 1, digital transformation is a strategy, not a project, right? There is no beginning, well, except for when you admit you have a problem and you start it. So that could be the beginning, right? If you don't admit you have a problem, it's the beginning of the end for you. You're going to be one of those companies that goes out of business or gets acquired. So you got to understand that it's a strategy. It's not a project. It has no end. It's in continuous iteration and it's in continuous development. Number 2, transformation of the way manufacturers operate their business. Industry 3.0 was all about changing the way manufacturers operated their production line. Industry 4.0 is changing the way they operate their business, right? If this was 20 years ago, we wouldn't have been talking about connecting QuickBooks to your PLCs. You would have probably, you just would have thought you were crazy, you know? But now you have to do this to stay in business, to stay competitive, right? You know, American Beverage Depot is in a position where they could become the most competitive supplier of that. What's the name of that packaging?
Well, Tetra Paks, but they also make water and just bottled juice, and the whole works pretty much anything that any bottler does. Yeah. Excellent.
So obviously being more efficient and reducing downtime and connecting your data and reducing integration costs is gonna, you know, it's gonna make that business obviously do better. But in those Tetra Paks, American Beverage Depot has the opportunity to be the gold standard for Tetra Paks, right? They could be the model. They could be the one that doesn't go out of business, and they could be acquiring all the other 10 Tetra Pak manufacturers that failed to transform, right? So you got to be thinking about this when you're building your architecture. You got to be building it for scale, right? You got to be building it for the future, right? I mean, there's, you know, you don't have to be like, oh, I want to take over the world or anything like that. No. Industry 4.0 is all about creating an ecosystem of people too, right? It's not just software and hardware, it's people, right? So it's a beautiful thing. I really love it. So last but not least, number 3, it starts with admitting there's a problem. If you don't admit there's a problem and you just call us up and say, hey, Zach, I want ignition, and here's how I want you to do it. And probably won't even pick up the phone, to be honest, but that's not the way that we work. We work with clients that come to us and admit that they have a problem, right? They've watched our content, they've gone through the mini course, they've done their research, and now they're ready to take that first step. Most integrators would be happy to take a PO for a proof of concept and just get started right away. But we really urge and recommend clients integrate on both our students and our integrators in our mastermind community, and also manufacturers that we work with. We don't do any integration projects at 4.0 Solutions. We only do training for other integrators and training for end users. But we also do assessments, right? So this is an assessment is the first step in a digital transformation project, or implementation, right? It's not a project, right? But it's the start of your digital transformation, is a digital transformation maturity assessment. And it starts by inventorying the business, inventorying the intelligence. These are all the inventorying the business is all the, that slide that you showed with all the, the manufacturing workflow. That's inventorying your business. Inventorying the intelligence is, what are the PLCs I've got on my lines? What is the, what is the software? I'm using Ignition here for SCADA. I'm using, some custom code here for my WMS. I'm using, QuickBooks for ERP. That's inventorying the intelligence. The third step, and that's kind of where the DTMA would kind of end there, right? We'd inventory the business, inventory the intelligence, and then we would take what we learned and we would write a roadmap for success. And in that roadmap for success, right, there's going to be a proof of concept, right? This is the area in the business that we've identified is the highest opportunity for impact, right? You can do a proof of concept anywhere, but ideally you need to start in the highest impact part of the business to get value as quickly as possible and use that value to fund your additional transformation, right? Digital transformation doesn't start with $1 million PO. Digital transformation starts with a $10,000 or $20,000 assessment. And then it starts with probably, $25,000, $50,000 proof of concept, right? Ignition's getting a little more expensive, right? You got to get some licensing and you got to get some development, right? But because you've laid the foundation, you've inventoried the business, you've inventoried the intelligence, you've talked with all the 5 cross-sectional groups in your organization, your leadership, your engineering, your IT operations, and your quality departments. You've done this assessment with all of those separate groups. You've taught them what it is that you're doing. You've taught them what Industry 3.0 is. You've taught them what Industry 4.0 is, and you've listened to all their problems. So you, as the solutions architect, you've identified by going through this process, one, that the client knows that they've got a problem and they're coming to you for help, right? They got the right partner. So that's really like lubing the runway for success. It's like loading the spring. If it's like an aircraft carrier, right? It's like, it's launching off, right? If you don't do the DTMA, it'd be like going on an aircraft carrier and just, trying to go full throttle and take off. You're just going to go right off the edge. So you got to load that spring. You got to get all the stakeholders on board. You got to teach them. Digital transformation is mostly just teaching everyone what actually the digital strategy is, so they're all on the same page, right? So then that's where you kind of get into this step 4, which is integrating all of that information into the unified namespace, and that's where you're at, Frank. And with your client, you're already in this iterative process, right? You say, he's developing. They've already got the agile mindset. It's not a waterfall project. It's an agile project. It's a flywheel. It's a continuous development.
You mentioned your structure. One of the really nice things, and I've just kind of lucked into this, they're not a very big company. They probably have 100 employees, including warehouse people and everything. Not a lot of people on the plant floor, but the IT department and the engineering department is myself and Juan Pablo. There are a few other people that can modify PLCs, and we have brought contractors from the outside to especially put new controllers out there to grab information from facilities equipment. We're grabbing power grid information. We're grabbing water temperatures from the cooling towers and things like that, because we need all of that. And you were talking about how you iterate into, you present the information and iterate. because he's the owner of the plant, he knows what they need. And some things have come up, like our sales guy needs to know the cost of making the juice, not only from the standpoint of the contents that go into the juice, which comes from the ERP system, right? How much did this drum of nectar cost? But also how much, what is the overhead of this plant? So, you know, you have secretaries and you have, gosh, the cost of water and a lot of things that are pretty constant through the day. What do those things cost? Those come from QuickBooks. And we've talked about, you know, the security aspect. Do you really want all the overhead information to be available for everybody? Everybody can go drill in there and look at the salaries that are being paid to the management and things like that, right? But they do represent overhead, and they do get recalculated pretty regularly.
You bring up a good point.
Yeah,
you bring up a good point. So we actually operate off of 5 core values. I'm only going to mention one, which is transparency, and Tesla operates the same way. The technician, they don't call them operators, the technician that's on the end of the Model S line, or, you know, Model Y in Berlin, and every line, they have the exact cost, not just of the materials, but of the labor of that went into that specific car, not at the end of the quarter, but in real time. And Tesla knows that with that information, right? If you're a transparent organization, you don't care that, you know that the executives are making 350,000 a year and the engineers are making 150, and, you know, the operators are making 70 or whatever, right? Like, it's a transparent organization. It's all out there anyways. So if they're not, there's obviously security that can be put into place to make it such that roles and responsibilities are adhered to, right? That's all within part of your IoT platform. But I'm going to say this. You said, you know, your client knows what they want, right? But what they want is a function of what they know.
That's right.
And when you get into this iterative phase, you're continually presenting new information. You just presented, you know, the other day, the costing on, you know, what is that barrel cost, right? Or what is our overhead on this actual machine? You're continually presenting new information. And from that new information, your customer is learning from that knowledge, not just, you know, the plant owner, but every stakeholder in the plant. And what may matter to one stakeholder may not matter to another, right? So that's why you got to put it all out there for the stakeholders to decide what's important to them. You know, they're going to learn from that knowledge, and they're going to come up with new ideas. Your employees are, you know, your operators are your smartest people on your business, right? You got to enable them to solve problems. That's one of the questions we ask when we're doing a DTMA with our clients. In the executive leadership team, the first question we ask is, do you realize, or do you think you're the smartest people in the organization? Or do you acknowledge that your operators are? Right? I mean, we don't phrase it like that, but we let them ask. And then they always inevitably say, yeah, of course, they're the smartest people. But then we ask again, and it's really up to the architect to determine whether or not they're telling you the truth, right? So we've done DTMAs with clients where we don't work with them after. You know, it saves us a lot of time and headache. Had we not, you know, had we started a proof of concept, that would have been a much bigger headache, right? We do a DTMA with the client, we provide some value, we get them on the right track, but we identified there's some issues that, you know, the client maybe they don't have the right values, right? Their values don't. It becomes apparent in the DTMA that they don't, you know, they're the type of company that extorts their operators. That, you know, it's not the type of company that we want to work with. So once you learn from that new knowledge, right, you get new ideas, you grab some new data, you get a new edge device, and you publish that data into your unified namespace. You expand the unified namespace, which then goes back into presenting new information and continuing this cycle. So once you're in this iterative process, the goal is to really go step by step to achieving the holy grail. This is the holy grail of manufacturing. This is if you take away anything from this presentation, you should take away the definition of the manufacturing holy grail, because I haven't really seen it defined anywhere else. So number one, your business is connected. Everything and everyone is plugged into the network. All the people, software, and hardware, all the stakeholders are all connected. They're all integrated, right? They're all integrated into a single unified namespace where all data and information can be accessible. Number 3, your stakeholders are informed in real time. What does that mean, right? Your reports operate off of real-time data, and they're continually updating. They're not a report that's generated on a Monday morning for last week's production data, right? Why does that matter? Because the shorter you can make that delta where you're iterating, obviously the quicker you can scale, right? If you take 2 years to do one iteration, you're not iterating very fast, right? I know that's an extreme example, but you would be surprised. Some people start projects and they go off into the sun they go away, they hide in their den, and they build this monolith, right? They do all the manual integration, they deploy it, and then they wonder why it fails. 18 months later, they deploy it and they wonder why it failed. When we're doing these iterative process, this is typically like a 4 to 6 week sprint where we have clearly defined deliverables. We want to add in this new asset, we want to present this new dashboard, and we want to do some training with your operators on this new scheduling system or whatever. Boom, it's 4 to 6 weeks. Let's say, whatever your hourly rate is, you get a PO for like, it's not a huge PO, right? I mean, every time that you're doing a new iterative, and this is kind of more on like the integration side, like how does the business side work? You're working with your client and you're providing value at every step of the way, such that the next PO is like, they can't wait to get to it because they're just excited to work with you and expand the unified namespace, right? But like I said before, digital transformation doesn't start with $1 million PO, right? It starts with a DTMA, and it just goes step by step, chunk by chunk, providing value at every step of the way in an iterative and agile development cycle. And so, that allows you to, number 4 in the manufacturing holy grail, you're displaying the current state in real time, right? You've got all that information. You're displaying the current state of the business in real time. That is the current state of the machines, the current state of the employees, the current state of the financials, right? But you're not only displaying the current state, number 5, you're displaying the future state. You're displaying the future state in real time too, right? You're not doing some study on some data set and crunching some numbers and then boom, producing a result that's the future state in a snapshot. And this is further down the road, right? This is when you've already got the unified namespace. This is when you're publishing your data into like a cloud ecosystem like AWS to leverage their machine learning tools. But you're using those machine learning tools to create models and to create predictions about the future state of your business. And you're making that a future state of your business available to all your stakeholders in real time. That's really important, right?
I'll give you a little different perspective here. One, you were mentioning the operators. I doubt that there is an operator in that plant that's been there for more than a year. It's constant turnover. This is in the very Latin part of Miami. And a lot of the people that come in there get either poached by other companies because they pay more. So Niagara and some of the bigger bottlers are in the area. And this is an entirely pretty much Spanish speaking plant. So the input, really the operators rarely know a lot of what's going on. Most of the, what I would call the upper levels, some operators are just moving boxes. Those operators, they're manual labor mostly. The people that actually run the lines, there's probably 1 or 2 to 3 maintenance people, running around the plant at some given time, including the maintenance manager, who's pretty hands-on. Those people is closer to what I would call operators, even though they can fix things. They can, a few of them are even a little bit PLC literate, although it's pretty rare that they need to go in and change everything. We have good message displays and things on the local HMIs to tell them what's wrong with the machines. One of the things we're transitioning into is grabbing all of the current production data and putting it on a great big old screen so that mostly those maintenance guys can look up, but also we're getting a little bit of competition going between, hey, the last guys achieved this output on the PET line. They're about to move over to the Tetra line 2, and they're going to try to beat the previous guys on Tetra line 2 in keeping that thing up and producing and getting done. And so you were talking about forecasting. We are already doing some of that, but of course it's by hand and it's on Excel spreadsheets. There's some pretty elaborate macros that the plant manager runs on those. And what we're trying to do is bring all the stuff that he's created over probably 15 years of being the plant manager and creating these spreadsheets and bring them into the Ignition platform with all the tags and data that we have in real time and minimize the amount that he has to go in there. It's really nice to say that you can drop, $500,000 on a project. Their margins are very low. Like I said, they get beat up by the local Niagara and Nestle plants that come in and just poach their employees. They can pay more. These guys are small and they know they're small, so they kind of make use of it. And it's more like a McDonald's thing. You bring an operator in there and you make it as simple as you can for that operator to keep the palletizer running or run the juice production machines or the boxing machines, the fillers, whatever it is. And when they leave, you deal with it. You deal with it and you get a new guy, right? And you plug him in. And that's really all they can do right now. They don't have a ton of money to put it. But the fortunate part is, like I said, there's maybe 5 or 6 people that I would call stakeholders. And then and like I said, the important operators from our standpoint are the ones that are there for years. And, they're really more maintenance guys. They're from Argentina, which is where the plant was originally from. And it's really important that, yes, that they have buy-in, right? One of the things I posted about before is if you don't have buy-in from the plant floor workers, they're going to think that you're just part of you're running something that's like a special club and they're not part of it. That's one of my complaints about Six Sigma. You have the green belts and the black belts and they're all over there talking about all the fancy stuff they're doing and everybody else feels left out. So we're really trying to bring the guys that are there for years into this process and get feedback from them. What information do you need, right, to keep your stuff running? So,
and I wouldn't be surprised if you actually got a longer retention out of involving some of those early stage employees in the process too, right? Engaging them. Everyone's a stakeholder. No human being is dumb. You know what I'm saying? Like everyone can provide value. They may not be in the right job, right? I think that a human being could provide a lot more value than kicking a box and, moving it at the end of the line. But that may be the state of the business right now, but it's not the future state of the business. That employee is not going to get replaced. That employee is going to get reappropriated and leveraged for
here's the interesting part.
So innovation happens on the plant floor, right?
Yeah,
and you said that, right?
Their workers, many of them are awaiting papers. In other words, they get them because they're not theoretically, they can work under some, they have some kind of a visa maybe, but they don't have their green cards yet. They don't have permission to be here. As soon as they get that permission, they usually find other things to do. So, and that's not my decision.
Unfortunate.
That's the way they run things. So it's kind of been a stopping point for when people get legally able to work for some of the bigger companies and then they move on. It's just the practical side of it. Now, would we like it to be something different? Would the owners like it to be something different? I'm sure they would. But right now, I don't think they have a method to accomplish that, if it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the method would be number 3, starting with admitting there's a problem. If they're fine with that turnover, then there's no problem, right? I obviously, think that that's a problem, but how we go about solving that, my approach might be different than what their approach is. But, I would start with the approach of like treating the employees as all stakeholders, giving them that information they need, going away from that Six Sigma approach where the carpeted side of the business is somehow so much more important than the concrete side of the business, right? The OT side. That's what's disengaging the operators, right? I'm not saying that you guys are doing that, but like this prediction, right? Number 6, prediction. It's not prediction happening in a data center on some graph that a data analyst come up with. It's a prediction that shows to the operator in real time, hey, this machine is going to go down in the next hour if you don't replace this bearing. Like that's something anyone can understand like that's very intuitive, right? It's getting that information from the cloud and rolling it back down to the edge. Everyone wants to go edge to cloud, but everyone forgets about cloud to edge. You need to get that context from your cloud and roll it back down to the edge So those predictions can actually be available to your operators in real time. So that's prediction. And then 7, that's the recommendation piece. Recommend we replace the bearing, right? Recommend preventative maintenance. There's recommendation going on. But last but not least, number 8, this is where the human being comes in. That recommendation from machine learning and AI is just that. It's just a recommendation to the operator. The human being takes their unique ability to process data in a way unlike any other computer can. And I truly believe ever will be able to. The human being gets to decide what gets executed, right? So that is the manufacturing holy grail. And to kind of summarize it all again, your business is fully connected. All the people, all the smart things, the people, hardware, and software in your business are connected. They're integrated, and your stakeholders are informed in real time. Because they're connected and because they're integrated, your stakeholders can be informed in real time of the current state, but not only the current state, informed of the future state of the business in real time. With that future state information, you know, and this could be other applications calculating this too, by the way, right? Your AWS machine learning application could come up with a prediction, and then another piece of software could come up with the recommendation based on that prediction. And you can't do that, right? That's why you need the unified namespace, because you're building these tools, you're building the digital version of your business, you're automating the business, right? So there's prediction going on, and there's recommendation. And then last but not least, your operators get to actually do what they're best at, which is be smart, creative, and insightful human beings. So that is the manufacturing holy grail. It's you know, there isn't actually not a finish line. It just continues to go. But this is why when people say Industry 5.0, I just fucking laugh, because no one has this right now, right? If this is the end goal of Industry 4.0, show me one fucking company that has anything close to this. Well, it's Tesla and it's Amazon, right? But there's still a lot more prediction and a lot more recommendation that could be going on. You know what I'm saying? So it's this is it, right? This is the digitalization. Well, not just digitalization, because that's just like talking about taking a piece of paper and turning it into a digital piece of paper. But this is the digital transformation. It's coming in as a you know, as a caterpillar, and it's going out as a butterfly. And if people laugh and they think that's funny, right? Some people say digital transformation is continuous improvement. And it's literally not. There is a mindset shift. There's a transformation, and there's, you know, that needs to occur. And that's why, you know, 9 out of 10 companies fail in this process. So I do want to show this last slide here. This is kind of like a little bonus. So I talked a little bit earlier about, you know, your ignition gateway, especially because it's using OPC UA to talk to your PLCs. You know, that's it's really kind of set up as your edge device, which then would allow, so this would kind of be your local unified namespace. This would be your ignition gateway right here. And, you know, if you only have one plant, then it's only going to ever look like what you see over here on the left. But real easily, they could scale out to plant 2, plant 3, right? Or, you know, maybe this is just line 1. This same architecture, it kind of creates like a tree architecture where you can build unified namespaces up to where you get your enterprise unified namespace, and then you could roll it back down to your plant layer. But I hope I didn't go too long. And I hope that was valuable.
I think that was good. And a lot of times we do go a little bit over. You were talking about the prediction. One of the things that came to mind there is I also work with a very high-tech local company here called Automation NTH, and they build some of that prediction into their machinery. They do a lot of work for pharmaceutical companies, and their biggest customer is Dexcom. And I've had, you know, NTH on here, and we've talked about that, but ignitions on every machine. And a lot of what they do is, like, rather than an alarm that something is too hot, you have approaching data points where you have consecutive readings where, you know, the slope is getting too large. So you're doing predictions based on that.
That's awesome. Yeah. You're taking the derivative.
Yeah.
This was actually, this is a little, we did this like in a demo where, you know, let's say you're doing a sales pitch, or not a sales pitch, but you're trying to get buy-in from you know, a team. You're doing a presentation and you're like, hey, why am I going to do this? What's the value? You find a problem that they've had for like 10 years and you solve it in 10 minutes. Right.
Exactly.
And for an oil and gas company, in this case, it happened to be time and tank, right? That's almost the same exact problem, right? The operator doesn't care that he's 2 inches away from the high level if the level's not even moving, right? Exactly. But he definitely cares if they're 50% full and that thing's going to overflow in the next 2 hours, right? So real easily, by leveraging the unified namespace, you're able to take that information, create new context, and publish it back into the unified namespace for publishing and making available to your operators in a way that wasn't possible before.
Yeah, and honestly, we didn't think of a lot of that until watching a lot of Walker's presentations and realizing that, yes, publishing things back into the namespace so some other application can grab it and deal with it. Now, a lot of what we're doing is trying to duplicate what the plant manager has done with a lot of his predictive things in the, but we're going to take, that's why I really appreciate the input from you guys. And I would love to have the time to actually join some of these things like the mentorship mastermind program. But unfortunately, I'm also involved in other things and have to service those. But it's possible that Juan Pablo himself will come join it, because he's the one who really, that's where the rubber meets the road. When I finish up here, by the way, for those who didn't know, I write books. I've published several of them, and that's what these are. I am coming out with a new one in 2021, writing it partially because of Automation NTH. They need it for Dexcom. So we're putting together a troubleshooting course and industrial maintenance course, and including a lot of this kind of 4.0 terminology, which is where this comes in. A lot of these things like talking about MQTT, Node Red, gosh, I forget, OSI Pi, PTC, a lot of the things that came up yesterday, that Walker talks fast. He comes up with lots of stuff. And every time he mentions something new that I don't maybe know something about, I throw it into this industrial acronyms and definitions as much for Juan Pablo or some of the plant floor people as anybody else, so that they know what's going on. You'll have to send me an email for that. For those of you who are watching, on YouTube or whatever, shoot me an email and I'll send you the current version. I put 9 July on there because I added 4 or 5 more acronyms. It's about 12 pages long now, and it's going to make its way into some of these other documents. As far as everything else, I do post this on YouTube when I'm done. I don't, if you look up Automation Consulting, which is my company name, you will find the YouTube channel, but I usually just tell people type that word in and you'll find me that way. And mostly what's on there, I do have some, free PLC training things on there or whatever, but I also post all these webinars on there. And of course, I also posted in the Automation Academy. I don't see anybody on this list that is a member of the Automation Academy right now, but they're used to grabbing it from there. I just stick the webinars on there along with all my other courses and things like that. I'd like to thank a couple of people I see here that I see regularly. Vlad.
All right, guys. And that's pretty much the end of the stream. I hope that was valuable. I thought it was pretty valuable. Thank you, Frank, for, again, having me on. Juan Pablo, would love to have you in our programs. Anyone, actually, would love to have you in our programs. Right now, you can join the Mastermind program at the link in the description below. Or if you guys are just interested in learning more, I do have a Calendly link. You guys can book a call with me, and I'd love to get to know about your business and how we can help you, reach your Industry 4.0 goals. And we'll see you guys next week on the weekly live Q&A. Peace.